Hello guys, European football is back and we begin with the UEFA Super Cup. Tomorrow night in Salzburg, we will be having the champions of Europe meeting the champions of Europa League. Paris Saint-Germain will be locking horns with Aston Villa, and it is a game where we are going to see tactical coaches like Luis Enrique squaring up against Unai Emery. It is going to be a very big fiesta, and if their last meeting is anything to go by, we'll be in for a treat, because the last time both met over a year ago, where we have PSG Aston Villa in the Champions League quarter-final 2 seasons ago across 2 legs. That very game produced a very wonderful scoreline, 5-4 on aggregate. That's on both legs. It was a 9-goal thriller. So where PSG eventually went through as winners of that phase. So we are in for another treat. Can Villa go a step further this time, or PSG, the defending champion, will they also continue the new season with lifting another trophy? So we'll break that down here now. Now, this is the UEFA Super Cup, and as customary, PSG enter into this campaign, this very European game, as defending champions of the Champions League, while Aston Villa also go there after winning the Europa League last season. And for PSG, this is another piece of history on the table. They are trying to become the only fourth team to retain the UEFA Super Cup in the modern era, following the likes of Ajax Amsterdam, AC Milan, and Real Madrid. And they also have a fascinating manager who is there also, who wants to win, who has won both of his previous Super Cup appearance, and who would also want to continue on the winning note. And on the other side, we have Unai Emery, who has lost all 3 of his UEFA Super Cup finals. So there is history between both managers, and it is going to be a very beautiful treat for both of them to locking horns together. Let us look at what has happened since the end of last season to the pre-seasons that is gradually phasing out right now. So we'll begin with PSG, and PSG entered this match with something Aston Villa quite don't have yet, which is continuity of a team that has already reached the very top of European football. For Luis Enrique, his team has actually won the Champions League again last season after defeating Arsenal on penalties in Budapest, and they also won the last year's Super Cup as winners of the previous Champions League against Tottenham Hotspur, before they came back in that very fixtures, coming back from behind to win on penalties against Tottenham. Another beautiful fact we can look for PSG is that this PSG side has gone 28 consecutive games and they have scored. They have scored in 28 consecutive matches. So you have to think about a team who has been firing on all 4 fronts in the attack. So the attacking structure and consistency is something Aston Villa needs to watch out for. However, they also need to be very careful, because PSG, if you ask me, are not match sharp yet. These guys have played just 2 pre-season games, where the first one where they lost 3-0 against Spanish side Mallorca, and the second one which they played a 1-1 draw against Manchester United. So it is on contrary for Aston Villa, who has a busy pre-season. These guys, after winning Freiburg in the final last season, that's the Europa League final last season, and with the beginning of this season, they are now have a little bit of restructuring in the entire team, with the likes of Morgan Rogers, who has left Aston Villa for Chelsea. Youri Tielemans has also left Villa Park for Manchester United. So Unai Emery is having a time to rebuild part of his squad, which is on the contrary for PSG, who hasn't let more players went. But however, Aston Villa actually responded with the signing of players such as João Gomez, Alejandro Garnacho, and centre-back Modou Kebesise, who has actually been part of the team too. And this makes this match particularly very interesting for me, because Villa are not simply trying to win another trophy. They are trying to discover the new Villa, which has come to stay. Now let's look at current form of both teams. We'll begin with PSG. Like I said earlier, PSG hasn't had a very spectacular preseason on paper. Their 3-0 defeat to Mallorca and the 1-1 draw with Manchester United is actually something to call for concern. But this is just preseason, and preseason is actually where teams try to get shapes and dynamism towards the end, towards the start of the season. So it is going to be as a bigger issue for PSG. We can also see how they will try to replicate their extraordinary finish to the season, despite not having more preseason this time before this encounter with Aston Villa. But on the other hand, Aston Villa has played 6 friendly this preseason, and in those 6 friendlies, Villa has actually pulled up 3 wins and also succumbed to 3 defeats. So the most recent was a 2-1 defeat to German champions FC Bayern Munich. But this is an important positive because Villa finished the 2025-2026 season strongly. They actually won 4 of their final 5 competitive matches, drawing the other, and then scored at least twice in each of those games. Villa also, if we are looking at momentum from competitive football than friendly results, Villa has a result that they could be very, very confident of. Let's look at head-to-head history. Head-to-head history. This is where things really get very interesting. This club have only met twice before, and both meetings came in the Champions League quarterfinals in 2025. PSG won the first leg 3-1 in Parc des Princes. Then Villa produced an incredible response at Villa Park, winning the second leg 3-2. So, but PSG survived and progressed 5-4 in aggregate. So, what does this actually tell us? First, it tells us that PSG have already proven that they can beat Villa. But secondly, and most importantly, it actually tells us that Villa have proven also that they can score against PSG. They scored 3 goals against them in Villa Park, and that should give Unai Emery's player the confidence going into this match that they can also have something to do. So, another thing we should also look at is the tactical battle. For me, tactically or tactics is where this game is actually going to be won, because for me, this very game is where the chess game has to be played. PSG would actually want to control the game through possession, movement, and positional rotations. While for Villa, under Emery, they have been very capable of being much a flexible team that they can press, they can sit deep, and attack transitions and also exploit spaces behind an opponent. And against PSG, the last part could be very crucial, because PSG would want their fullbacks and midfielders higher up the pitch. That will create attack superiority for PSG. That is how they have actually played. They push forward very well. But pushing forward with your fullbacks and also with your midfield will definitely create space behind your team. And if Villa wins the ball and immediately finds the likes of Garnacho or Emiliano or Ollie Watkins in space, PSG could actually have a problem there. And Villa cannot simply sit back for 90 minutes because PSG is actually very good in moving opponents from side to side until a gap is eventually open. The longer Villa defend without the ball, the more pressure they could face in this very game. And that is where we have to look at key players who would actually come to bring their brilliance in both teams. For PSG, we could look at PSG's midfield, where we have the likes of Vitinha, one of the most important players for them in this very game for me. Even though his World Cup performances were nothing to write home about, but before going for World Cup, Vitinha has actually proved to be PSG's best and most dominant midfield they could have. He's a player who can actually dictate the rhythm of the game, and he will actually be the man who will be controlling PSG's possessions. Now, look at it this way. When Villa press, PSG needs somebody that is capable of receiving the ball under pressure and turning away from danger and also progressing that attack. Now, this is where a player like Vitinha actually come in, because he's of actual great importance in this kind of play. If he controls the midfield, then definitely you'd expect PSG to control the game. Now, for PSG, another player that we have to look at is Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. UEFA specifically highlights Georgian winger as one of PSG's players to watch, and he has enjoyed an uninterrupted preseason for PSG. His ability to play wide, attack defenders, create situations in the final third could be a source of major concern for Villa, especially if Villa's fullback is highly isolated. Now, this could become one of those games where Kvaratskhelia doesn't need 10 chances. Give him 1v1 situations and he can definitely change the match. For Aston Villa, we could look at all eyes will be on player like Alejandro Garnacho. The Argentine winger has joined Villa on loan from Chelsea and could make his competitive debut definitely in Salzburg tomorrow. And imagine the opportunity. Your first competitive appearance for a new club against the reigning European champions in an European final. That's the kind of stage where a player is definitely expected to announce himself. And we know that Garnacho's pace and directness could particularly be of high importance if Villa were able to attack PSG in quick transition. Yeah, his trade for Chelsea last season was not impressive, but we all know from his Manchester United days that a player like Alejandro Garnacho can definitely cause you problem in quick transitions. Aston Villa is definitely going to create chances attacking wide in terms of quick transitions from the back to the front. They'll definitely need a player like Alejandro Garnacho to be in top form to help them do that. And then, of course, we have the likes of Ollie Watkins. If Villa are going to hurt PSG, they really need a striker who will definitely be able to occupy space within the centre backs, run behind the defenses, and also turn half chances into goals. And this is what Watkins has proven to be able to do for the Villains in his time there. But there is a question mark over his fitness going into this game because UEFA currently lists him as one of among Villa's players who are on to be absent because he's actually not match fit and he's more like a probability for this game. That's, well, if he could make it tomorrow, he's definitely going to be a player that Aston Villa would definitely be looking to bank or rely on. Now let's look at the team news before we leave. Now the latest team news shows for PSG, several players are still being assessed for match fitness. One of whom included the likes of Ousmane Dembele, Desire Doué, Fabian Ruiz, Achraf Hakimi. We have the likes of Lucas Hernandez and Warren Zaire-Emery. These guys have actually returned to training with the boys, but in terms of match fitnesses and availability of these guys has not actually been proven. But from now till tomorrow, this could make big headlines for PSG as if their attacking threats will definitely be available. Well, for Villa, we have only the likes of João Mozambi, who is definitely ruled out with a knee injury. Amadou Onana is unavailable, while John McGinn is reconciled. Emiliano Martínez and Ollie Watkins face fitness concerns. Now, these fitness concerns are coming from the fact that these guys are just joining the team from their World Cup break. They just returned. So the final lineup could actually also depend on them late fitness decisions, and this is something worth checking again immediately before kickoff to see how these guys would want to line up or spare themselves for the very game that is coming. Now, let's look at the hot stats. You know, before the game, we have to give you some numbers that you can also look at, numbers that could actually define this game. One of them is which we stated earlier that PSG have scored in 28 competitive matches. And on the other hand, we have previous PSG versus Villa Champions League tie has actually produced 9 goals across two legs. We also know that Villa has won 4 of their last final 5 competitive matches last season and scored at least twice in every one of those games. Again, we know 5 of the last 6 Super Cups involving English sides have gone on penalties. Remember, even last year we had Tottenham going on penalties with PSG. Even the numbers are telling us that Villa are very much in this game. You can't rule them out because they are part of the game. Now, there are things we should look at. What could actually decide this very game that we are looking at? For me, 3 things we actually define the game. One of them is, can Villa survive PSG's pressure? If PSG establish a sustained pressure for this very game around Villa's penalty area, Emery's team could spend long periods defending. It means that Villa need to be very brave without the ball. That's one thing. Two, now, can Villa exploit transitions? When Villa win possession, they need to attack very quickly. This is where the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, Emiliano, and Ollie Watkins, or whoever leads the line, become extremely important. These are things we should do. Now, thirdly, which midfield will control this very game? Are we going to have Vitinha, João, Neves, and PSG's midfield who will dictate the rhythm of the game? Or will Villa be able to prevent them from doing exactly that? If PSG control the midfield, they probably will control the match, which is what we've given them for that. And if Villa disrupts that rhythm and turn the game into a transition battle, this suddenly becomes very much dangerous for PSG, given the fact that PSG's wide men from the wings and even the center half and the midfield are always pushing further in order to pile more pressure to the PSG defense. So a quick transition definitely will be a bigger problem for PSG. Now, here's my prediction. Honestly, I think this match is definitely going to be closer than people are actually expecting. PSG have a strong squad. They have the Champions League pedigree. They have Luis Enrique, and they have already beaten Villa in Europe before. But we also know that Villa have something PSG cannot ignore. That is the memory of the Champions League quarter-final. It's more like they are looking for a way to make restitution for losing the quarter-final in 2025. So it means they know that they can hurt PSG also. And Emery is one of the best managers in Europe when it comes to preparing a team for a specific opponent. And I expect Aston Villa to definitely make PSG very uncomfortable. But if you ask me, by and large, I think PSG technical quality and ability to control possession will eventually give them the edge. So my prediction is PSG 2, Aston Villa 1. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to penalties, if you ask me. But I am sticking with PSG 2 and Aston Villa 1. Now, that's my preview for PSG against Aston Villa in the 2026 UEFA Champions League Cup. The European champions against the Europa League champions. Luis Enrique against Unai Emery. And after the 9-goal thriller in the Champions League last year, I don't think they were going to be a wait for a long another classic like this. That's my preview for PSG against Aston Villa in the 2026 UEFA Super Cup. The European champions against the Europa League winners. Luis Enrique against Unai Emery. And after that 9-goal thriller last year, I don't think we are going to have to wait long for another classic. But now, I want to hear from you. Can Aston Villa shock PSG? Can Garnacho make an instant impact? Or will PSG retain the Super Cup? Drop your predictions in the comment section. Tell me why you feel PSG or Aston Villa, which you are backing. And we will pick the correct predictions at the end of this game and reward our winners. So now, don't forget to drop your comments in the comment section. Will PSG retain the Super Cup? Or will Aston Villa produce a shocker in this very encounter? Until next time, enjoy the beautiful